It started as an innocent friendship, a shoulder to lean on. But one night, my phone lit up. I can't stop thinking about you. My heart raced. My husband saw my smile and asked, "What's so funny?" I just locked my phone. Because for the first time in years, I had a secret too. I never thought I'd be the kind of person who had a secret. Not a real one, anyway. Maybe something small, like eating the last piece of cake and blaming the kids. But not this. Not something that made my heart race every time my phone buzzed. Not something I had to hide from my husband. But here I am. It started small. It always does, doesn't it? Just an innocent friendship. That's what I told myself. That's what it was, at first. His name was Andrew. I met him at my son's school. Our kids were in the same grade, and we'd run into each other at drop-offs, pickups, school events. He was easy to talk to. Funny. He made the long, boring PTA meetings a little more bearable. We talked about normal things, kids, school policies, upcoming fundraisers. Harmless stuff. And then one day, I noticed something. I looked forward to seeing him. It wasn't a big realization. It crept up on me, like a slow leak in a tire. The kind you don't notice at first, but then one day, your car won't drive right, and you wonder how long the air has been slipping out. I wasn't unhappy in my marriage. That's the thing. Michael is a good husband. A good father. He works hard, helps around the house, does his best. We've been married for 15 years. We know each other's habits, each other's moods, each other's size. But that's the problem, isn't it? When someone knows you so well, you stop being new. I don't know when we stopped talking about interesting things and started talking only about schedules, bills, groceries. I don't know when I stopped caring about putting on perfume or when he stopped noticing if I did. I do know that one day, I laughed at something Andrew said, and it was the first time in a long time I'd laughed that way. The kind of laugh that sneaks up on you. The kind that makes you feel light. And I liked it. I should have recognized the warning signs then. But I didn't. Or maybe I did, and I ignored them. It started with texts. At first, they were practical. "Hey, do you know if soccer practice is cancelled?" Or, "Did you see the email from the principal?" Then they turned into small jokes. Inside jokes. And then one night, my phone lit up. "Andrew, I can't stop thinking about you." I stared at the screen, my stomach flipping. I should have shut it down right then. I should have deleted it. I should have told Michael. Instead, I did something worse. I smiled. Michael was sitting next to me on the couch. He glanced over, saw the look on my face, and asked, "What's so funny?" I locked my phone. Nothing, just a meme. And just like that, I had a secret. For the first time in years, something belonged only to me. And I wanted more. I didn't respond to Andrew that night. I told myself I wouldn't respond at all. But the next morning, I read the text again. And then I read it again. And then I typed back. I don't know what to say to that. It wasn't a yes. It wasn't a no. It was something in between. His reply came fast. "Andrew, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know." I told myself that was the end of it. It wasn't. The next time I saw him, I expected awkwardness. But he was normal. Friendly. Like nothing had changed. So I pretended, too. I acted like the text had never happened. And because we weren't talking about it, it made everything feel safe again. So when he asked if I wanted to grab a coffee after school drop-off one day, I said yes. Just coffee. Just two parents, talking. But I felt it the second I sat across from him. This wasn't the same as chatting outside the school. This wasn't the same as group conversations at soccer practice. This was different. I felt nervous. Like a teenager on a first date. I hated myself for feeling that way. We talked for an hour. About everything and nothing. About books, about old music we both liked, about how we both missed hiking but never seemed to have time anymore. And when I got home, I couldn't stop thinking about him. That's when I knew I had already gone too far. I tried to shake it off. For a few days, I ignored his messages. I didn't look for him at school. I made myself extra busy at home. Michael noticed. One night, as I was brushing my teeth, he leaned against the bathroom door and watched me. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah, why?" He hesitated. "You've been weird lately." I swallowed. "Just tired." He nodded, but I could see the doubt in his face. I should have ended it then. I should have blocked Andrew's number and focused on my marriage. But I didn't. Because the truth is, I liked it. I liked feeling wanted. I liked knowing someone was thinking about me. And when Andrew texted me a few nights later, "I wish I could see you right now," I replied, "Me too." That was the night everything started to crack. Because I didn't just type the words. I meant them. I wanted to see him. I wanted to talk to him, to sit across from him again, to feel whatever it was I felt when we were together. And I didn't care what it meant. I didn't care about what it said about me. I only cared that, for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. The next afternoon, I went grocery shopping. I was standing in the dairy aisle when my phone buzzed. I pulled it out, already knowing who it was. "Andrew, you looked really beautiful today." I smiled. My stomach flipped. And then, "Hey." I jumped. "Michael." I turned, my heart pounding. He smiled, but there was something in his eyes. Something careful. "I thought you were home. I just needed a few things." His eyes flicked down to my phone. And I knew, in that moment, he could see everything. He could see the way my hands shook. He could see the way I avoided his gaze. Michael was never the jealous type. Never the suspicious type. But he wasn't stupid. And I had never been a good liar. I deleted the messages that night. All of them. And then I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at my phone, realizing something terrifying. It wasn't about Andrew. Not really. It was about me. I had let myself slip away. I had let my marriage slip away. And now I was standing on the edge of something I couldn't undo. Michael knew. I knew he knew. But neither of us said a word. Not yet. The silence between us became louder. Michael didn't say anything that night. He didn't ask. He didn't accuse. But I could feel it. The shift. The weight of something unsaid, pressing against us. The next morning, he kissed me before leaving for work like he always did, but it felt different. Too slow. Too careful. Like he was studying me. Like he was waiting. I went through my day pretending everything was normal. Packed the kids' lunches, dropped them off, folded laundry, answered emails. But my mind was somewhere else. Andrew. I didn't text him that day. I told myself I wouldn't. I told myself I needed to step back. To stop whatever this was before it became something I couldn't control. But then, late that afternoon, my phone buzzed. "Andrew, I miss you." Just 3 words. And I should have ignored them. Instead, I typed back. "Me, I can't do this." Less than a minute later, "Andrew, then don't fight it." I stared at the screen. My heart was hammering. I locked my phone. Set it face down on the table. Walked away. But my hands were shaking. That night, Michael came home late. He walked in, set his keys on the counter, and just stood there. Watching me. I was at the sink, rinsing dishes, trying not to meet his eyes. "Laura," he said finally. His voice was quiet. Even. I turned. "Yeah?" He hesitated. Then, carefully, "Are you happy?" The plate in my hand felt slippery. I set it down. "Why would you ask that?" My voice was too light. Too forced. He shrugged, but there was nothing casual about it. "I don't know. Just, wondering." I swallowed. My heart was pounding. "Of course," I said. "Liar." Michael held my gaze for a second too long. Then he nodded. "Okay," he said. And walked away. I stood there, gripping the edge of the sink, my knuckles white. He knew. He knew, and he was waiting for me to say it. The next morning, I found an excuse to leave the house. I told Michael I needed to pick up something from the store, but that wasn't where I went. I drove. No destination. Just street after street, trying to outrun the heaviness in my chest. Then, without thinking, I pulled into a parking lot. A small cafe. Andrew was already inside. I hadn't planned to see him. I told myself that. Swore to myself that this was just a coincidence. But my feet were already moving. I walked in. He looked up. And the second our eyes met, I knew. There was no turning back now. We didn't touch. Didn't even sit too close. But it didn't matter. It was the way he looked at me. The way my whole body felt light and shaky, like I was walking on the edge of something dangerous. He smiled. I wasn't sure if you'd come. I wasn't sure either. His eyes studied me. But you did. I swallowed. This is a bad idea. Probably. He leaned in slightly. But doesn't it feel good? I felt my breath catch. Yes. Yes, it did. I don't remember what we talked about. I just remember how I felt. By the time I left, my hands were still trembling. I didn't go straight home. I parked a few blocks away and sat in the car, gripping the wheel. I had crossed another line. Not physically. Not yet. But I was already gone. Michael was awake when I got home. Sitting on the couch, waiting. I hesitated in the doorway. His eyes met mine. Did you go to the store? His voice was quiet. Too even. I hesitated. The lie was on my tongue. It would be so easy. But I didn't say it. I couldn't. Michael studied me for a long time. Then he sighed. And he said something that made my stomach drop. I saw your texts. The room tilted. My mouth went dry. I stared at him. My phone was in my purse, locked. He hadn't touched it. But that wasn't what mattered. He didn't need to see them. He already knew. He had known for a while. I opened my mouth. Closed it. Michael didn't move. Didn't look away. And then, the front door opened. Our son walked in, tossing his backpack down. Hey, Mom, can we order pizza tonight? Michael exhaled. Stood up. He ruffled our son's hair. Yeah, buddy. Let's do pizza. And just like that, it was over. Not the problem. Not the tension. Just the conversation. Michael didn't look at me again. He just walked into the kitchen. And I stood there, feeling the weight of everything I had done settle over me. I had wanted a secret. Now I had one. And so did he. That night, Michael was quiet. Not cold. Not angry. Just quiet. He laughed at the kids' jokes, helped clean up after dinner, kissed me goodnight like he always did. But his touches felt different, lighter, distant, like they were just motions he was going through. Like something between us had already cracked, and he was just waiting for me to admit it. I barely slept. I kept staring at the ceiling, my mind racing, trying to figure out what he knew. What he saw. If he had really seen my texts or if he was just testing me. I almost woke him up to ask. But I didn't. Because I was afraid of his answer. The next morning, things were normal. Or at least, they looked normal. Michael left for work without another word about it. The kids fought over the last pancake. I went about my routine like I hadn't spent half the night lying awake, my stomach twisting. And then my phone vibrated. Andrew, you okay? I hesitated. Then, I think Michael knows. It took him a while to respond. Andrew, what did he say? Me, nothing. But he knows. Another pause. Andrew, do you want me to stop texting you? I should have said yes. I should have ended it. But I didn't. I don't know. Later that day, I was in the kitchen loading the dishwasher when I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, I felt my stomach drop. It was Lisa. Lisa, the PTA mom. The one who knew everyone's business before they even knew it themselves. The one who had a way of looking at you like she already knew something you didn't. She smiled, but it was tight. Hey, Laura. Can we talk? My throat went dry. Sure, I said slowly, stepping aside. She walked in, glanced around, then turned back to me. I don't know how to say this, she started, but I thought you should know. People are talking. My blood went cold. Talking about what? Lisa exhaled. About you and Andrew. My hands gripped the counter. What do you mean? I forced a laugh. There's nothing, look, she cut in gently. I don't care what's going on. I really don't. But this is a small town. People notice things. And if I'm hearing about it, other people are too. My chest felt tight. Who told you this? She gave me a look. You know how it works. People see things. People assume things. Panic clawed at my throat. There's nothing to assume, I said quickly. Andrew and I are just friends. Lisa just looked at me. And that's when I knew, she didn't believe me. Okay, she said finally, like she was letting me pretend. I just thought you should hear it from me before it got back to Michael. And then she walked out, leaving me standing there, my heart pounding. I didn't text Andrew that night. I didn't text him the next day either. But I thought about him. A lot. And then, 3 days later, I saw him. I was picking up groceries, rushing through the store, still shaken from my conversation with Lisa, when I turned the corner and nearly crashed into him. We both froze. Hey, he said. I glanced around, paranoid. People are talking about us, I blurted out. His eyebrows pulled together. What? Lisa came by, I whispered. She said people have noticed. That people are assuming things. He sighed. Laura, I don't know what to do, I cut in, my voice low. Michael knows something's off. And if people are already talking, do you want to stop? The way he said it. Quiet. Careful. Like he already knew my answer. I swallowed. My head was screaming yes. But my heart, let's just be careful, I said instead. He nodded. And just like that, I crossed another line. That weekend, Michael had to work late. I put the kids to bed, poured myself a glass of wine, and sat on the couch, staring at my phone. I didn't know why I was waiting. Or maybe I did. And then, Andrew, come outside. My breath caught. I set my glass down. Walked to the door. And there he was. Standing by his car, hands in his pockets, watching me. I hesitated. I should have turned around, closed the door. Instead, I stepped out. He didn't move. Didn't say anything. I swallowed. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you, he said softly. And then, the headlights of another car lit up the street. Michael's car. Panic shot through me. Andrew took a step back, turning toward his own car. Go inside, he murmured. I didn't move. Michael pulled into the driveway. Parked. I turned, heart pounding, and stepped inside, shutting the door just as I heard his car door open. My hands were shaking. Michael walked in a few seconds later. He paused, glancing at me. Everything okay? I forced a smile. Yeah. Just, couldn't sleep. He studied me. And then his eyes flicked toward the window. For a second, I thought, he saw him. But he didn't say anything. He just walked into the kitchen. And I exhaled. Too soon. Because then, from the kitchen, I heard him say something that made my blood turn cold. Why was Andrew outside? My whole body locked up. I turned, pulse hammering. Michael was standing by the sink, back to me. His voice was too even. Too calm. He already knew. And I had no idea what to say. My mouth went dry. Michael hadn't turned around yet. He was still standing by the sink, hands resting on the counter, staring at the faucet like it held the answer to whatever he was thinking. I forced myself to breathe. To stay calm. He wasn't, I lied. You must have seen someone else. Michael exhaled slowly. Then he turned. His expression wasn't angry. It wasn't cold. It was worse. He looked tired. Don't, he said quietly. Don't do that. The air between us was heavy, filled with all the things we hadn't said, all the moments leading up to this. I couldn't sleep, I stammered. I stepped outside for air. Maybe you thought, Laura. His voice was firm now. I swallowed hard. He walked closer, stopping a few feet away. His eyes locked onto mine. Tell me the truth, he said. The truth. 3 simple words, but they hit me like a freight train. Because the truth wasn't just about Andrew being outside. It wasn't just about a few texts, or a coffee date, or the way I had started hiding my phone. The truth was that I had checked out of my marriage long before tonight. The truth was that I had been waiting for something, someone, to make me feel alive again. The truth was, Michael already knew. And yet, I couldn't say it. Not like this. So I did the worst thing I could have done. I shook my head. There's nothing to tell. Michael's jaw tightened. A bitter laugh slipped from his lips. He ran a hand down his face, then let it drop to his side. Okay, he said. Just that. Okay. Then he turned and walked out of the kitchen. And a few seconds later, I heard the bedroom door shut. The next morning, Michael was gone before I woke up. No note. No text. Just silence. I tried to go about my day like nothing had happened, but everything felt different. My hands were unsteady as I made breakfast. My stomach twisted when my phone buzzed. Andrew, are you okay? I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because for the first time, I wasn't sure if I wanted him to be the person I turned to. That evening, Michael came home at his usual time. He kissed the kids. Ate dinner. But he didn't say a word to me. Not a single one. And somehow, that hurt more than if he had yelled. The kids didn't notice. Or maybe they did and just didn't say anything. But I felt it. The shift. The space between us growing wider by the second. And then, after the kids went to bed, Michael finally spoke. Do you love him? The words sliced through the air. I froze. He was sitting on the couch, staring at the floor, hands clasped together. I opened my mouth. No sound came out. Michael lifted his head. His eyes met mine. Do you love him? He asked again. I shook my head quickly. No. No, it's not like that, then what is it? His voice cracked slightly. What am I missing here? Because I see the way you look at your phone. I see the way you don't look at me anymore. I felt my chest tighten. It just happened, I whispered. I didn't mean for, don't. He exhaled, shaking his head. Don't say it just happened. That's not how this works, Laura. I blinked rapidly. My throat burned. I was lonely, I admitted finally. I felt invisible. And he made me feel like I mattered. The words hung between us, sharp and cutting. Michael inhaled deeply. Closed his eyes for a second. And I didn't? I wiped at my face. It's not about that, isn't it? His voice was flat. I had no answer. Because maybe it was. Maybe if I had told Michael how I felt earlier, if I had fought for us instead of looking for something outside of us, we wouldn't be standing here now, staring at each other like strangers. Michael stood up slowly. I'm going to stay at my brother's for a while, he said. A cold rush of panic shot through me. What? My voice was shaky. He rubbed a hand over his face. He looked exhausted. I need time, he said. I need space to think. And I think you do too. I shook my head. Michael, please, he held up a hand. Laura. His voice was quiet but firm. I can't be in this house with you right now. Tears spilled over before I could stop them. So that's it? He exhaled, looking at me like he wanted to say something else. Then, instead of answering, he walked past me. A few minutes later, I heard the front door close. And then, silence. The days that followed were slow and painful. Michael texted for updates about the kids. Nothing else. I didn't text Andrew. He texted me. Once. Andrew, are you okay? I didn't respond. Because for the first time in a long time, I needed to sit with myself. To face the mess I had made. To figure out who I was without someone else making me feel like I existed. Michael came back after a few weeks. Not with a dramatic reunion. Not with some big speech. Just one night, after the kids were in bed, he walked into the kitchen, sat down, and looked at me. I don't know if we can fix this, he admitted. I swallowed. I don't either. And that was the hardest part. Not knowing. Not having an answer. Not being able to say, I'm sorry, and make everything okay again. But I did say it anyway. I'm sorry, I whispered. Michael stared at me for a long time. Then, finally, he nodded. I know. Not I forgive you. Not it's okay. Just that. I know. And for now, that was all there was. I don't know how this story ends. Maybe we fix it. Maybe we don't. But for the first time in a long time, I'm not looking for the answer in someone else. This time, I'm facing it head on. No more secrets. Just the truth.